So, I've got something super exciting for you today on QuickSpeak English, and I can't wait to dive right in. Peter, my shopping guru, is here with me today.
Hey there. And you know what? I'm absolutely thrilled to be here because shopping is totally my jam. You know what I mean?
Um, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. You know how our listeners are always asking about like real world situations?
Oh my goodness, yes. And shopping is just it's literally something everyone needs to do, right? Like whether you're grabbing groceries or looking for new clothes.
That's exactly why I wanted to talk about this today. Um, so many of our listeners struggle with like the everyday phrases they need in stores.
Absolutely. And you know what's really interesting? Shopping vocabulary is just it's so different from what people usually learn in textbooks, right? Like the real practical stuff you need to know when you're actually out there.
Um, could you maybe help us understand why these phrases are so important for English learners?
Well, look at it this way. When you're in a store and you need to find something specific or maybe talk about prices or even just ask for help, these are like crucial survival skills. You know what I mean? It's not just about knowing the words. It's about feeling confident using them.
So let's start with the basics. What are some essential phrases people need to know when they're trying to find their way around a store?
Oh, right. So one of the most important things is, well, knowing how to ask where things are, you know? And the simplest way is just saying something like, "Excuse me, where can I find the electronics department?" Or "Could you point me to the dairy aisle?"
Are there different ways to ask that, like more casual ones?
Absolutely. Like you can totally just say, "Hey, where are the," and then whatever you're looking for. And sometimes people just go with, "I'm looking for," which is super casual, right? But here's something really important. When someone's giving you directions in a store, they're going to use words like "it's down that way," or "head to the back," or "it's in aisle 6."
Those directions sound tricky to follow sometimes.
Oh yeah, and that's why it's super helpful to know phrases like, "Could you please repeat that?" or "So let me make sure I got this right." Because sometimes, store layouts can be really confusing, right?
Um, what about when you can see the section but can't find the specific item?
That's such a good point. Like in that case, you might want to say something like, "I'm in the right section, but I can't seem to find," or or "I'm looking at the shelves here, but I don't see." And don't forget, sometimes things are right in front of us, but they might be on a different shelf level. You know what I mean? Like top shelf, bottom shelf. These are really useful words to know too.
These are really practical phrases that people can use right away.
Exactly. And remember, it's totally okay to use gestures too. Like when someone's giving you directions, they might say, "It's over there," and point. Or "It's right around the corner." These phrases are they're so common in everyday shopping situations, right?
Um, so what about when you actually need help from someone working at the store? Like, how do you ask for assistance?
Oh, this is like super important. So the first thing you want to do is, and this is really key, get their attention politely, right? Something like, "Excuse me," or if you see their name tag, you can say, "Excuse me, Sarah." And then just jump right in with what you need, you know?
Could you give us some specific examples of what to say?
Absolutely. Like you might say, "Could you help me find," or "I'm looking for a specific type of," and here's something really useful. When you're asking about products, you can say things like, "Do you carry?" or "I was wondering if you stock." These are just, they're like perfect for finding out if the store even has what you're looking for, right?
What about when you find the item but need more information about it?
That's when it gets really interesting. So there are so many different questions you might need to ask. Like, does this come in a different size? Or do you have this in blue? And sometimes you might need to know about specific features, right? So you could say, "Could you tell me more about," or "I'm wondering about the,"
And what if something's out of stock?
oh, that's such a common situation. Like you definitely want to know phrases like, "When will you be getting more?" or "Do you know if any other branches have this in stock?" And sometimes they might offer to order it for you, so it's good to know how to respond to that, you know? Like, "Yes, that would be great." Or, "Could you let me know when it arrives?"
Um, what about trying things on or testing products?
Totally. So in clothing stores, you might need to ask, "Where are the fitting rooms?" Or "Can I try this on?" And for other products, you might say, "Is it okay if I test this?" Or "Could I see how this works?" It's all about, well, making sure you're completely happy with what you're buying, right? because nobody wants to have to deal with returns and all that.
Speaking of buying things, what about when it comes to like discussing prices and maybe getting a better deal?
Oh my goodness, yes. This is like such an important part of shopping. And I've got some really useful phrases that'll help you navigate those price conversations, you know?
Could you start with the basics of asking about prices?
Of course. So like the simplest way is just, how much is this? But, and this is really cool. You can also say things like, could you tell me the price of this? Or what's this going for? If you're comparing items, right, you might say, which one is cheaper? Or is this one a better value?
What if something seems more expensive than you expected?
That happens all the time. And there are actually some really polite ways to handle this. Like you could say, is this the best price you can offer? Or do you have any discounts available? And if you're at a place where bargaining is okay, right, you might say, would you consider taking? Or could you do a better price if I...
Are there special phrases for when items are on sale?
Oh, totally. So like you'll want to know how to ask, is this on sale? Or when does this sale end? And here's something really useful. You can ask, do you price match? Because lots of stores do that now, you know? Or you might need to say, I saw this cheaper at, which can sometimes get you a better deal.
What about bulk discounts?
Yes, that's such a good point. Like, you might want to ask, do you offer any bulk discounts? Or is there a special price if I buy more than one? And sometimes stores have loyalty programs too, right? So you could ask, do you have a rewards program? Or can I get a discount with a store membership? These can really help you save money in the long run.
I've been wondering about different types of markets. Like, does the vocabulary change depending on where you're shopping?
Oh my goodness, yes. And this is actually super interesting because, you know, different markets have their own special terms and phrases that you'll want to know.
Could you give us some examples?
Absolutely. So like at a supermarket, you'll hear things like shopping cart or basket. And you might need to ask about the produce section or deli counter, right? But then, and this is really cool, when you're at a farmer's market, it's totally different. You'll hear things like fresh picked and locally grown. And you might ask, is this organic? Or when was this harvested?
What about specialty stores?
Oh, those are so interesting. Like in a butcher shop, you'll need to know terms like cuts of meat. And you might say things like, how lean is this? Or could you trim this for me? And at a bakery, right, you'll hear freshly baked and might ask, is this still warm? Or when did you bake these?
Are there specific phrases for clothing stores?
Yes. In clothing stores, you'll hear totally different vocabulary, like fitting room instead of checkout. And you might need to ask things like, do you have this in a different size? Or where are the clearance racks? You know what's really important too? Like knowing the difference between sale items and regular price items, right? These terms come up all the time.
So, what about when we actually get to the checkout, you know, that moment when we need to pay?
Oh, yes. This is actually super important because, you know, the checkout process can be really confusing if you don't know the right phrases. Like first things first, when you get to the counter, the cashier will usually say something like, did you find everything okay? Or, and this is really common, will this be all for you today?
How should we respond to that?
So you can simply say, yes, that's all. Or if you forgot something, you might say, actually, I need to grab one more thing. And here's something really important. They might ask you about bags, right? Like, would you like a bag? Or do you need bags today? Because, you know, in many places now you have to pay extra for bags.
What about different payment methods?
Oh my goodness, yes. This is so important because, and this happens all the time, you need to know how to explain how you're paying. So like the cashier might ask, how would you like to pay? And you can respond with things like, I'll pay by card, or I'm paying cash, or even, can I use contactless? And sometimes they might ask credit or debit, which is super common in some places.
What if there's an issue with the payment?
Right. So this happens sometimes, and it's really good to know phrases like, the card isn't working, or could you try running it again? And sometimes you might need to say something like, I think there's been a mistake with the price, or wasn't this item on sale? You know what I mean? These phrases can really help you sort out any problems that come up during checkout.
And what about receipts?
Oh yes. The cashier will usually ask, would you like your receipt? And And you can simply say, yes, please, or no, thanks. But here's something really important. If you think you might need to return something later, you should definitely keep your receipt. And sometimes they might ask if you want the receipt in the bag or with you, right? These are all super common situations you'll encounter while shopping.
Second paragraph in the dialogue.
In this episode of QuickSpeak English, we're diving into something super cool, you guys. Something that'll make your shopping trip so much smoother, easier, and more enjoyable. We're talking about essential phrases for navigating stores and markets.
Exactly. And it's so much fun, you know? I mean, shopping's already a great time, but knowing the right phrases, oh my gosh, it just elevates the whole experience, right? It's like having a secret weapon, you know what I mean? It makes everything so much easier. And I just really, really think it will help you.
What are some of the most useful phrases you think for starting a conversation with someone, perhaps?
Okay, so first point, greeting the staff. Something simple like excuse me or hello works wonders. You can even add a polite good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on the time of day, and just smile, you know? A friendly face goes a long way. And remember, tone is key. You want to sound approachable, not demanding.
Right? Totally. What about asking about a specific product? Like, if you're looking for something particular,
You could say, excuse me, do you have, followed by whatever you're looking for? Or you could say, do you carry? Or even, I'm looking for. And it's really helpful, like if you have the item's name written down, that always helps, you know? This is really important, you know? That's like the first thing.
okay, got it. And if you're not sure, like if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, how do you ask?
Well, there are a few ways. You could try something like, do you have any, followed by a general description of what you need. Or, I'm looking for something for, and then specify the purpose, like I'm looking for something for a picnic, or I'm looking for something for a birthday present. Or, and this is really important, you can always ask, could you help me find? Staff are often happy to assist. They're there to help, you know? And they really appreciate it when you ask nicely.
Makes sense. So what about asking about prices? That's always important, right?
Absolutely. A simple how much is this works perfectly, or what's the price of? Or you could say, could you tell me the price, please? These are all perfectly polite and perfectly acceptable ways to ask about the price of something. And don't be afraid to ask. It's much better to ask than to, assume.
Right? That's really helpful. What if you want to check if there's a sale or discount?
Oh, that's a great question. You could ask, do you have any sales or discounts on? Or, are there any special offers on? Or you could say, is there any discount available? A lot of shops are more than happy to tell you, and a lot of times they'll have some great sales or specials, It's always worth asking.
Okay. And what if you need to ask for a different size or color?
Super easy. You can just say, do you have this in a different size color? Or do you have this in a...
Right? So what about paying? What are some phrases to use at the checkout?
Well, at the checkout, you can simply say, I'd like to pay for this, please. Or this will be all after you've placed everything on the counter. And if you're paying with a card, you could say something like, I'll pay with my credit card or I'll pay with my debit card, depending on your preferred method. And always remember to say thank you to the cashier. It's just good manners.
Okay. So what if you need help carrying your bags or you've made a mistake and need to return something?
Yeah, well, if you need help with your bags, you could politely ask the staff member, could you help me carry these bags, please? And if you need to return something, you could say, excuse me, I'd like to return this item and explain the reason. And most stores have a return policy, right? So just check it beforehand, just in case.
Oh, that's really important. So to summarize, the most important phrases are greetings, asking about products, asking about prices, asking about sales, asking for different sizes and colors, paying, asking for help, and returning items.
Exactly. And remember, a friendly smile and a polite tone go a long way, It really makes a difference. It just makes everything so much more enjoyable. And sometimes you might even get a little extra something special just for being nice. Like a free sample. Maybe. Who doesn't like free samples?
Haha, true. So, thanks for all those tips, Lily. They were really helpful. I feel much more confident now about shopping in English.
Absolutely. And remember, practice makes perfect. The more you use these phrases, the more natural they'll become. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, Just keep practicing, and you'll become fluent in no time. And remember to have fun with it. Shopping should be enjoyable,
Yeah, totally. Thanks again, Lily. And to all our listeners, thanks for tuning in to QuickSpeak English. We hope this episode has been helpful, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye, everyone, and happy shopping.